Right back at it here on the early line. Donnie Rightside here, solo mission. We will get Ben Stevens back in the studio as soon as possible. The hot topics certainly continue just to keep running. And maybe the hottest topic yesterday was J.J. McCarthy of the Minnesota Vikings, turning out that we were waiting to see, and we were looking at several tweets, how extensive this injury was actually going to be and how this could impact the Minnesota Vikings 2024 season. Now, going back to the offseason, we love the fact, or I should have said most football fans said, you know what, that makes some sense. In order to have a really good franchise, what do you guys have to have? A franchise quarterback. J.J. McCarthy was the ultimate winner in high school, the ultimate winner in college, still a young player. It's not he's coming to the league like it's Chris Wenke at 26 or 27, very early, I believe 20, maybe 21 years old, where you'd have a long, long list of what he could certainly accomplish in the NFL if he became a starting quarterback, which were the expectations of a first-round pick. The only shocking thing when we were starting to see like some of the depth charts coming out was, would J.J. McCarthy be the starting quarterback right away for the Minnesota Vikings? The one thing I do know is if we were talking to Jim Harbaugh, his previous head coach at the University of Michigan, who's now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, what was he saying? Maybe the best winner he's ever been around at the quarterback position. And I started joking, okay, you know what? Maybe they'll trade Justin Herbert because they want J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, we knew that wasn't going to be feasible for the Chargers. So he does wind up with the Minnesota Vikings, which was intriguing. Other teams may be looking around to get him, like the New York Giants, just to say, you know what, we need a winner here. Commanding the pocket, commanding the huddle, being a leader of men. And you saw him in that first preseason game. The ability to throw the deep ball, the ability to run an offense, the ability to handle the football team without starters and still look competent. That's a big deal for a rookie quarterback. But also keep in mind, you were operating here from a quarterback that opened up his preseason with an interception, and it didn't shake him one bit. You love to see that. You want to see the adversity here. You want to see the kid want to succeed and have a terrible start to your preseason in your first NFL action, and then rebound with that type of performance. If you watch the game live or just watch the highlights, Justin Jefferson didn't play. He was in street clothes on the sideline, running up and down the sideline, mic'd up, knowing that J.J. McCarthy was ripping off deep ball after deep ball and probably saying, you know what? I think we found ourselves a franchise guy. Didn't have any words for the wear after the game, but the next day shows up back to training camp. Hey, coach, something is wrong with my knee. They check him out here. Goes under the knife, and there could have been instances where he would be out, let's just say 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 7 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, something in that range. Now it turns out they open it up and figure it was best to do a full reconstruction of that meniscus, and J.J. McCarthy now is going to be out for the season. Now, me, as a handicapper, was I high on the Minnesota Vikings in the 2024 season coming into it? Not necessarily, but we told you repeatedly, when you're drafting that high and getting a quarterback in the first round, your record really doesn't matter during that season, unless it's like the Green Bay Packers and what they had, luckily, over the past 20 to 25 years with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and Jordan Love, where it's like, you know what? We expect to be good. We're just drafting a quarterback for down the line. The Minnesota Vikings weren't drafting a quarterback for down the line. They were drafting J.J. McCarthy because they believe he could be the starting quarterback from day number one. And quite frankly, it looked like he might even be on that trajectory. Now, granted, when you take a look at the schedule, the perfect landing spot for J.J. McCarthy, honestly, maybe would have been game number one at the New York Giants on that schedule. But then San Francisco 49ers, the Houston Texans, the Green Bay Packers, a neutral site game against the New York Jets in London before you hit that bye week, and then take on the Detroit Lions, who have playoff and Super Bowl aspirations here. So when was going to be that perfect time if Sam Darnold did start at quarterback? Would it have been after the bye? And also, with the injury itself to J.J. McCarthy, maybe you were saying now, okay, the pressure's off the organization, the pressure's off the coach, and also your young quarterback in J.J. McCarthy, where he could find a landing spot after injury somewhere around weeks 9, 10, 11, or 12 if you were not technically in the playoff hunt. It would have been a great spot because he still would have been around the football team, still able to get back on the practice field. But now when you enter into the IR, you're done for the season. You're basically off of the practice field, and that whole rookie season is a scrap. We talk about this a lot with the Indianapolis Colts. When you say to yourself, okay, Anthony Richardson last year, he's technically entering into his second season. At least he got a little bit of gameplay last year early on before being knocked out for the year. There's still question marks. Can Anthony Richardson be the franchise guy? He didn't get a long look at him during his rookie season. He didn't get that off season where it's like, okay, I took a few hundred snaps this season in the National Football League. Now I'm ready to be the true starting quarterback of of the Colts here. We'll find out with him a little bit later if that injury really messed up going into his sophomore season. But for J.J. McCarthy, you can get those mental reps all you want, but nothing is going to replace being in the game. And also the question marks come up with Sam Darnold. I do think Sam Darnold could be a capable quarterback here. I do think he can run that offense. The offensive coordinator, head coach there in Minnesota, very good with Kevin O'Connell. I do think that's a problem offense if you have a quarterback that can deliver. You also take a look at Addison out there at wide receiver. We thought he might have been done for the year with getting carted off the field. He should be fine, hopefully, for opening day. And then you have JJ on the other side here. That is going to be an absolute phenomenal. Jay Jettas, as I should say, Justin Jefferson on the opposite side. That should be dominant. Now, the thing to look forward to here for the Minnesota Vikings is value is in the eye of the beholder. What are we taking a look at? Because if we look at their win total, it's 5.5 games at a plus 184 juice here. Now, if you look for them to get 6 wins, it might not even be a bad thing at this point. It really, actually 7.5, excuse me, as the change up there. Like, let's just say 7 wins to 8 wins here. What were the expectations if J.J. McCarthy held the reins the entire season? Is that a slight knock? Because rookies are going to take their bumps. Maybe one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in the NFL. Who was that? That was Peyton Manning. Almost 30 interceptions as a rookie. So maybe you have a veteran presence in Sam Darnold. And I'm not saying we're going to rewrite the record books with the guy, but he could be a competent starter. You have a solid running back, a solid tight end, an average offensive line. We'll see if they can step up this season. But the wide receiver position, as long as you have Addison back and Jefferson healthy, they should be able to move the football. Why not? Like, take a look at the Detroit Lions defense. It's not great. You take a look at the Bears defense. We'll see if they step up to the plate. The Packers do have a solid defense here, but there's no reason to believe that offense can't move the football. So for me in game number 1, forget about the season itself. I do like the Vikings there. Slight favorite of the New York Giants. Now you have a quarterback that you're placing and saying, okay, J.J. McCarthy, I don't have to look over my shoulder, right? It's just going to be me this season. I'm going to get the playbook here. It's going to be specifically tailored directly to me as Sam Darnold. That's not a bad option. I do like the Vikings in week number 1. On the season, once again, I didn't think that the Vikings were going to have a sensational year either way, depending on which quarterback started. But now I'm starting to see a veteran quarterback that maybe you can get to that 8-win total here for the Vikings. Not all is lost. I understand as a fan base, it's a tough scene. It's just what happens in the NFL. Injuries happen. This is the early line on a Thursday morning, and we'll be right back after these words. Hour number 1 in full effect right here for the early line on a Thursday morning. It's your boy Donnie Rightside here, 8/15/2024. We're halfway through the month of August. Are you excited about the NFL? And how about this weekend? Get your time in, get your rest, get your relaxation, because next week, it's college football season. College football today, pro football today after that. And away we go into an exciting regular season in both college football and professional ranks. But still, we are starting to iron out some of these issues with certain football teams. You say, Donnie, what are you talking about here? Still, players are upset. Some players want contracts, and some players now officially on the move. Ian Rappaport tweeted yesterday, sources, the Patriots are trading pass rusher Matthew Judon to the Falcons, landing Atlanta a standout on defense. It's a 3rd rounder going back. So it says, breaking news, and that was breaking news. The one thing that we do know is Matthew Judon was very upset with his contract situation in New England. But I can't fault New England for this. Sometimes you take a look at and equate to it. Let's just say CeeDee Lamb. We know how much he means to that Dallas Cowboys offense and to that football team. Led the league last year in absolute receptions. Phenomenal talent. Available for a contract. Wanted to get his contract done. It's not there. But from a Cowboys perspective, they really need him. Like, for them to have a winning season, CeeDee Lamb has to be there and happy. So let's go back to Matthew Judon. Great football player, 4-time Pro Bowler, a solid addition to your defense for anybody in the NFL. So you say to yourselves, on one of the least talented teams in the NFL with a new head coach that's a defensive-minded head coach, I really need as many good pass rushers as I can possibly get. Matthew Judon now on the move to the Atlanta Falcons, who for me, I think is the best team in the NFC South that just got better. That move for the Atlanta Falcons, that makes a lot of sense. If your goal is to win the division, forget about the Super Bowl. Oh, Donnie, why would Atlanta make that move? They can't win the Super Bowl. Stop it. The goal for the team is to win the division, get a home playoff game, and see if you can do some damage in the playoffs. Matthew Judon for a 3rd-round pick to Atlanta at 32 years old made absolute sense. Their window is right now with Kirk Cousins. They think they can win 10-plus games and that division and get to the playoffs, and you can't win the Super Bowl unless you get to the playoffs. But from a New England perspective, why didn't we get this done a little bit earlier? Why did we do this before the draft? Why did we trade Matthew Judon at the draft for maybe even a higher pick, a second or a third rounder? Now, the reason why he went with a third rounder, Donnie, why would such a good player only go for a third rounder? Do the New England Patriots know something we don't? Yes, he's 32 years old, and the team is going to stink. So obviously, you're looking to move on because what were you going to win? 4.5 games with Matthew Judon? What about without him? Yeah, 4.5 games. It's not that big of a deal. They had to move on. They weren't going to pay that big salary. They found a team that would take him and certainly is going to be better for it, but also you get the third-round compensation pick back. Maybe you tank in this year. Maybe you get those high draft picks, and away you move on. The Matthew Judon situation made absolute sense for the Patriots, even though it looks like they got back nothing. Whether or not they had Matthew Judon this year wasn't going to happen or wasn't going to be fruitful for them. And in 2 to 3 years, if you still sign Judon to a big contract, by the time you get good, what is he, 35 years old? Stop it here. They had to move on. Other big news in the NFL we were talking about yesterday certainly was a deal. It's early in the preseason. We still have 2.5 weeks left to go. The teams have not played their second games outside of 2 teams in the NFL in the preseason, the Hall of Fame game. How about Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford experiencing hamstring tightness and didn't finish the practice? Now, granted, you like to see that where if you feel something in the hamstring, shut it down, don't fight through it. I've had a history of hamstring injuries myself, and one of the more quirky hamstring industries in sports is the wide receiver or the running back because they're built on quick twitch muscles. How many times after a game, it's nothing. Just felt my hamstring grab a little bit. I'll be back next week. Only to see that player to be out 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks here. But Matthew Stafford is a competent veteran quarterback that operates from the pocket. But you still have to be able to dodge some of those elite, talented pass rushers in the NFL. If you cannot protect yourself, you're going to end up getting injured worse. Now, he still has a few weeks to recover for this. And maybe just as a mild one where he says, you know what? I'm not going to sprint out left or right. We're not going to have any naked bootlegs in the pocket where I'm going to have to run 30 yards. I just need to slide left and right, operate out of the shotgun. I should be okay. It's never a good thing because hamstring injuries, if they're not treated appropriately, meaning getting that rest time and you force your way back, can turn into even longer term injuries. So looking from a Rams perspective here, they're going to need a healthy Matthew Stafford right out of the gate. Now, the evaluations will come, and Sean McVay is going to tell us it's no big deal. But then again, when's the next time we're going to see Matthew Stafford on the field? And also during these installation practices, which so many times, guys, you have in training camp just to getting to know your younger wide receivers and your offensive line and making those calls. Once again, you can get all the mental reps you want, but being out there with your teammates in that huddle, a completely different scenario. You want to be playing your best football at the end of training camp, not just coming back to the huddle at the end of training camp. We'll see if that happens for the Rams and Matthew Stafford.